Hello, and welcome to The Content Bite, a podcast for freelancers who use their words to make money. I'm Rachel Smith, a freelance journalist, copywriter, and content producer. I'm also the founder of Rachel's List, a jobs board and community for Australian writers and other creatives.
And I'm Lynn Testoni. I'm a journalist and content writer as well. Rachel and I are your weekly co-hosts, and every week we bring you all kinds of tips, tricks, and some fabulous guests to help you make the most of your freelance business.
I used spreadsheets for 15 years.
Oh my God, did you?
I know. But as my business grew, I grew out of the spreadsheets.
Yes.
And it got harder to sort of keep on top of all my invoicing and quoting and things like that. And Rounded was the accounting software that finally converted me. And it helped simplify my taxes and also just let me take ownership of what goes on in my freelance business. And I love that I've got visibility over my finances, so I can see what's happening with my cash flow and all the other insights that are on the dashboard.
I know, the dashboard is so cool. I love a good pie chart, and I love the whole thing because it makes it so much easier to work it out.
Yeah.
And don't forget, if you're a gold member of Rachel's List, you can save 20% on any annual Rounded plan, even if you're an existing customer. So see the show notes for details. Hi, Rach. Well, this week's guest is a very special one. I've seen him on stage and I've just finished his first novel, and I'm in awe of his diverse talents.
Yes, we are chatting with Toby Schmitz. I'm still reading his book, but so far it's awesome, so clever and great characters.
Exactly. That's my fault because I hogged the book for way too long, and then I only dropped it with you on the weekend. But it's a wonderfully complex book, and I'm really keen to chat about it. Shall I introduce Toby?
Yes, let's go.
Okay, Toby Schmitz is a writer, director, and actor. He was most recently seen on television in Boy Swallows Universe and on stage in Gaslight. He's received nominations for his performances in The Seagull, Thiestes, I knew I was going to say that wrong, Much Ado About Nothing, Measure for Measure, Reuben Guthrie, and The Great. His television credits include The 12 and Black Sails. And he's also a celebrated playwright with plays including Degenerate Art, I Want to Sleep with Tom Stoppard. I think many people have, but yes, and Capture the Flag. He was awarded the Patrick White Award for his play Lucky. And Toby is just about to release his first novel, The Empress Murders, which is being published in May, in a couple of weeks.
Welcome,
Toby.
Thank you so much. Lovely to be here, guys.
Toby, your mum was a bookshop owner or is a bookshop owner. And in fact, one of my favourite bookshops is Newtown Elizabeth, and we always go there, me and my 10-year-old. Never leave empty-handed, and we love having a giggle at the new quotes on the blackboard. Have you ever had a hand in those, or any part of running the stores?
Yes, indeed. Well, since birth. I mean, I grew up in those stores, and I currently live above the Newtown Elizabeth's bookshop, and I am responsible for some of those quotes that are on the blackboard out the front. There's actually often a little bit of vying for who gets the quote up.
Yes.
If you get what you think's a witty quote up, and then to come down the next day to find someone has rubbed it off and put another one up, like that can start real inter-staff wars, that kind of thing.
Oh, nice.
Oh, classic. I love that little behind-the-scenes tidbit. I'll remember that next time we're there.
They're hard won, that blackboard real estate. Yeah.
Yes.
What was it like growing up amongst books? Do you think it's given you a love of reading?
It's an absolute gift. There's no way around it. I don't remember anything else. There's no way it hasn't given me that. It's been lovely watching my 8-year-old daughter having sort of similar experiences to me. It's sort of like Wonka factory stuff growing up in bookshops, the secondhand bookstores. So that has its own kind of set of experiences that comes with it. It's given, apart from having totally scattered Catholic reading tastes, it's also made me, I think, quite cavalier about the actual physical things. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't expect books to boomerang. Like, they're not that precious to me. I'm a bit I bend the spines back, I get a biro out and put an asterisk in the margins, much to the horror of other loved ones. Like, what are you doing? It's, there'll be another. And it's also, I suppose, given me a fairly commercial relationship with them, and a pretty democratic one. Like, I'm as excited about a certain Archie comic that comes into the store, they being rarer and rarer these days because they're printed on such pulpy paper, to, a first edition Sylvia Plath. One came in only a few months ago, and I had heart palpitations.
Yes.
But yeah, it's given me a range of, I don't know, skills or ways that I deal with books or literature, and it's all pretty scattergun. Yeah.
You're so lucky. I imagine, did your family always think your debut novel was coming, given you were surrounded by so many books?
I think kind of the opposite. I think that everyone is pretty skeptical. Do you know what I mean? Even though I said, just at the beginning of the pandemic, I said, if I can't write a novel now, I'm never going to write one. And I think, basically my family were pretty skeptical. They're like, yeah. We'll believe you when we see it, kind of a thing. I think with that, my bookshop owning family has always been aware, not skeptical is probably not the right word, but aware that everyone kind of does have one in them. They just have to find themselves. Whether it's any good or not, it's another thing. But I do feel like because acting is really my bread and butter. And I feel like 99 out of 100 people would rather chew their own arm off than get up on stage or have to do that speech at the wedding or the wake or whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas anyone who's even marginally literate, as in can spell their own name and write it down, has an opinion about writing and maybe has half a screenplay in their drawer, or at least wrote some dodgy poetry as a teen, or has a novel burning inside them. And I think that's a healthy and just a fact of life. And so, yeah, I think my parents' reaction to me saying, I think I'm shaping a novel here, or I think it might even come out, or look, I don't think it sucks. Each step of the way has been, well done, darling. We'll see.
Yes. Well, I did say that I've seen you on stage a few times, but memorably in Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead.
Yeah.
And obviously that was with Tim Minchin. And we talked a bit off stage, off camera about him.
In the wings.
In the wings, in the green room.
Yeah.
So is acting still your first love or writing?
I've always done both. It's hard to answer that question. I think with a gun to my head, I'd probably say acting. I find it easier and more fun, and it's far more collaborative. Also, there's a kind of a freedom to acting where you're not in control as an actor. You may do the best audition in the world, but not get the part because, I don't know, they don't like the shape of your jaw. Well, that's fine because it's nothing to do with me. Or you sign on to a play and it only goes for 10 performances. Well, not my decision. Of course, that comes with its downsides, that not having control as an actor. But I've always written. I thought I would be a writer. I didn't think that acting was a viable occupation growing up in Perth when I did. And it wasn't until a couple of years into my acting course at the National Institute in Sydney that my brain even started to dare to think that it might be an occupation. In fact, my writing was worryingly encouraged by the head of acting at NIDA at the time. Like, don't forget about the writing, mate. Like, keep that up.
Oh God.
But I always wrote, and I suppose short stories or whatever, poetry, but I always wrote performance stuff from as long as I can remember. Sketches to do at school, stand-up comedy I did embarrassingly early. There wasn't much competition in the early 90s in Perth, but like I was 18, I was doing stand-up. And then when I got to uni at UWA, I was writing cabaret and stuff, and onward at NIDA. When you're at uni, you have this opportunity, and I sniffed it then, of dark theatres that you're never going to be able to hire again once you get out. But like, you can actually get the keys to a little performance space. And I was like, well, let's use them while we got them. And it's never really stopped. But mainly performance stuff, writing stuff for myself to do, or my chums to do, or someone else to do, and maybe I can direct it. And also a way not to get too depressed about not getting acting gigs.
Keeps you going, keeps you thinking.
Yeah, that's right. Telling stories, Yeah.
I know, like, for writers, the big holy grail is to get to a point where you have enough writing work coming in, enough regular gigs. For an actor, is that having enough directors who, you're top of mind and you've got enough work coming in and it comes to you as well as you having to audition? Is that where you're at now?
I think they're pretty comparable experiences. I mean,
Yeah.
acting is definitively freelance.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, that whereas I think you can potentially get to the point as a writer, we go, no, I've got a 6-month gig at the SMH or whatever it is,
Yeah.
or I've got a 12-book deal or something like that. Acting is a little more precarious in terms of what's coming up next, and somehow you just have to find a way to deal with that and going, oh, there's nothing on the horizon. Am I going to retrain?
We all think that.
or will I stay the course? And in a
Yeah.
way, for me, writing and acting, though I've made far less coin from the writing, that is that the two of them, which have always been in bed with each other, I can't remember a time where I wasn't performing or writing, have managed to keep me stop being too depressed about one of them when I just think about the other. Yeah, I've been a bit of a jobbing actor, I suppose, for the last decade or so, that it pays the rent.
Well, let's talk a bit about your debut novel. I'm only partway through. It's called The Empress Murders, and it's a real genre mishmash, isn't it? Like you've crammed a lot into there, mystery, noir, horror, adventure. Where did you find inspiration?
Well, firstly, on the genre mash thing, I find like all good stories are on some level, and maybe it speaks to the fact that I've just spent so long in the sort of the screen industry where people are forever doing their elevator pitch as a genre mash. It's The Goonies meets Silence of the Lambs. You know what I mean? So, yes. And I think that in a way we're always genre mashing. Even if you tried to write the most trad murder mystery, it would somehow be a little bit of a mash of something else just because of who you are. But it was a very in terms of where the genesis of the story and the inspo for it came from. It started life as a play 20 years ago. Had some public and critical success with independent plays in Sydney, and I was really desperate for some main stage theatre company to pick one up, and they were becoming increasingly, in my mind, more attractive to the Sydney Theatre Company or whatever by having just like 4 middle-class people speaking on a couch. And no one was picking them up. And finally, a mate said, why don't you just blow the walls out and write something budget be damned? And at the time, I was very interested in why there was not so much gothic horror or thriller on stage as there was, say, during the Victorian era when it was wall-to-wall Sweeney Todds and ghosts and blood on stage and stuff. It's always struck me as a fairly creepy place, the theatre. You can actually scare people. And so that was one idea that went in the box. I've always thought that a story isn't one good idea. It's got to be at least 2 or more, and then they can jam with each other. So that went in the box. There were some horrible things happening on a P&O cruise around the time. Like, oh God, imagine not being able to get off one of them. I grew up under the shadow of a serial killer who was very almost next door in Perth as I was a kid. So I've always been kind of wondering about how to explore that notion. And that's a great trope for a thriller or a mystery, a serial killer. But I often see them, to my mind, treated a little glibly sort of, as just as a device. So I wanted to explore around with that. Anyway, and then finally, I still didn't really know what I wanted to talk about, like why it wasn't, like what was the engine. And I really wanted to have a look at all the post-colonial guilt stuff. I mean, growing up, educated when I was in the late 80s and early 90s was a really good time for talking publicly about the horrors of colonialism and imperialism. They may have backed off now. I mean, it's only got more complex. But I just happened to grow up with educators who were like, no, we need to talk about what happened to the Indigenous people here. And then I didn't want at the same time to do an Australian story with some people in the outback where something horrible happened and it's a whole lot of men who can't communicate with each other. You know, I thought, is there a way of talking about that stuff? Then I discovered an ocean liner in the 1920s called the Empress of Australia, a luxury ocean liner that was actually sort of doing Pacific and Atlantic runs. And although slightly obvious, I thought the metaphor had found itself. And then I started writing it, wrote the play. It went fine. It was an independent thing. Cut to pandemic. And I thought in lockdown, if I can't write a novel now, I'm never going to. And with this play, which was back then called Empire, Terror on the High Seas, I thought, well, I know my plot. At least I don't have to sketch that out. I knew it would take some serious reworking because they're such different beasts, but I didn't know how began and something happened then in the middle and how it ended. So I set about it, and I suppose that was 5-6 years ago.
Wow.
Because the book has some really strong and eccentric characters in the story. Do you think that's because it started as a play and it's so character driven?
I think so. I did go through a process during rehearsal with the actors as writer, but also sort of assistant director, really. And half of them are my chums. I mean, and then still are. That you create these characters and they do make them all the more vibrant. And there's bits I've definitely stolen from the performances 20 years ago that I've put into the book. However, my favorite kind of novels have eccentric characters or kooky characters. I mean, there's a great line in, I'm going to get it wrong, but in Noel Coward's Private Lives, where Amanda says, I don't believe anyone is truly normal deep down in their private lives. Like, we're all eccentric. And I think some of my favorite novels, like I'm a huge Martin Amis fan, and those characters just sing off the page. And somehow you've bumped into them, and yet they are almost magical beasts, in their eccentricities.
So interesting. I've just finished reading Anne Lamott's Bird. Is it Bird by Bird? Her memoir about writing, and it's just fascinating. I'm not a fiction author at all, but I just loved all the tips she talks about in building character and the notes that authors take, and it's just so beautiful.
I think there's a huge overlap from fiction writing, or maybe not that, journalism and acting, and that is like, you've got to be curious about condition and observant. I once had an acting teacher who said, if you get bored on the bus, you're not an actor.
Yeah.
Like, you need to be looking at everyone going, how do their shoes feel?
Yeah.
Yes.
I love that. And I think that's a lot of what journalists do as well. We just take that curiosity through life and apply it to everything. So, Well, talk to us about the process. I'm really interested to hear the process of taking, a script from a play and turning it into a novel. How did you do that? Did you just kind of have it there and just start rewriting?
Yeah, I think I do think it's an informative and interesting process I went through. Firstly, I had the fortune of like nearly 2 decades passing, or 15 years or whatever it was. And during that time, I tried to turn it into a TV treatment. Someone earlier in the process said, mate, maybe this should have been a novel,
Yeah.
So I was always back there going, I didn't resolve if I did justice to my idea for that story. And then when I decided to, it leapt out at me. I think I thought, okay, I'm going to write a novel. I'm doing this. I'm going to get out of my head and the depression of this lockdown. We can do this. And within 5 minutes, I remember going, oh, that's the one. So something about it had been gestating, I think, helpfully. And then I also knew a couple of things, sort of hard-won things over the years with my performance writing, and that was like, I can't open the laptop too early. If I open the laptop too early, the thing stalls. I definitely need a beginning, a middle, and an end, which I had because of the play previous. So that I ticked that off, and I can't start writing if I don't have that. And in theatre, of course, that's a little easier or more defined. Curtain up, something has to be happening.
Yes.
I mean, it probably happened just before the interval.
Yeah.
and probably something nice or lovely or shocking should happen as the curtain comes down. But I knew that. And often these things change as I set out writing a story. The beginning, the middle, and the end may absolutely often change completely. But if I don't have those at least temporary goalposts to head towards, then I can't start, or it stalls after 4 pages and becomes
Did you storyboard it and plan it out like you would a play?
Well, that's what happened next. I went, what's the next thing? Having never written a novel, what do I do next? And I lent on sort of palm cards that I would experience more usually in a TV writer's room. You can stick up on the wall with pins and then shuffle around. And I only had 3 cards. I knew what I wanted something to happen in the beginning. I knew something I wanted to happen in them. And I spent 6 months on that process, and it was great. And it was so liberating because I just kept adding cards, and you could shuffle them around going, no. And I could write random things on them, like, it's been 7 scenes since sex was mentioned. Question mark? Or do we need more blood here? Or I'm interested in Tony's backstory here. Am I? or I'll find a quote or even draw a doodle or an article that I could snip out. And I reckon 6 months, and by the end of it, I had this big, fat, feathered up, dog-eared stack of those palm cards with a bull clip on them. And I woke up one morning and I said, that's enough shuffling. It's time to open the laptop. So that was a totally new process for me, and I have embarked on it again since as I launch into a couple of other potential novels. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay, so it didn't put you off.
No, it unlocked it for me, and it meant that I wasn't stepping away from the laptop, but then because I'm pretty haphazard, like I don't have a filing system. And wasn't just writing in random moleskins or post-it notes that'd go through the washing machine. I sought some form of order finally in my life, and it really bloody paid off.
That's
interesting.
Because the novel has some clever quirks. I mean, I love that you made the shipper narrator. What was the thought behind that? Was it one of those palm cards?
It was, in a way. It was. There was a note jotted on one of them. No, that's not true. It happened later. It was already up and running. It was already some several drafts in. I started wondering about what makes it a novel and not a play. Yeah. And I thought that's something I probably couldn't do in a play, have the ship as its own voice that could conveniently drop in and disappear at other points. There was a convenient aspect to it. I thought, some overriding narrator that's not me, that's not the character's brains, would be helpful just to kind of take us below deck or suddenly transport us elsewhere. Also, it was a notion of I wanted something supernatural about it. I'm back to the idea of the
Gothic noir
exactly, where there's always some bump upstairs, whether it's the woman in black or whether like black gaslight, it's actually just a husband looking for jewels. Like there's always something that gives you a little shiver. And I'd found a good way to introduce supernatural into the back end. But then I went, wait a minute, just this notion of, it's really the spirit of every floating vessel that's ever happened, from leaf in a puddle through to, Putin's mega yachts now. I thought that's kind of spooky. That's slightly supernatural. I could have the spirit of floating vessels that could drop in any time and give us some historical context and also just a surprise. I'm a huge fan of surprise. Probably just my acting training. Like, you don't want people coughing, yawning, or rustling in the theatre, you know what I mean?
Yes.
How did you go about publishing? Was it something that you did like midway through or towards the end? Was it hard to get an advance for the book?
Geez, everyone seems to have a completely different answer to this question. They're fascinating. I've been listening to various podcasts recently. And oh my God, that's how it happened for you. I suppose everyone's is unique. I've had a literary agent in HLA and especially Edwina Stewart in Sydney. Since I graduated from NIDA, I wrote a little play and they went, we like it. I don't think I've earned them a buck in 2 decades. but wonderfully, gloriously, they've always been supportive of anything I send them and so on. I spoke to them about this novel that was emerging during lockdown. I didn't want to send it to them until there was something that resembled something. I didn't, I know you get a couple of chances at this kind of thing. They read it from memory. And we're like, yeah, okay. And Edwina said, I want to send it to my friend Jane Palfreyman at Allen and Unwin. And I said, why don't we send it to everyone? Work on this relationship that I have. Oh, really? Anyway, a few months later, the email back, which was curt, but friendly, that said, this is not for us, and listed the reasons why. And they're pretty blunt, and there's like 3 of them, about structure, about, I think, it's just not for us, was pretty definitively a no. And I smarted for about a month, but then I'm just so used to rejection as an actor. Like, I don't, so what? Like, I didn't expect anyone to like it in the first place. But then I thought, instead of starting something else, like, why don't I address the things that they said they didn't like about it? I spent another, I suppose, 4 or 5 months trying to whip it into a new shape. Some things radical, some things, minor. I'm also good at taking a note as an actor. Like, that's my job. I say, be louder, I'll be louder. I don't care. Like, no skin off mine. It's my job to be flexible. And I sent it back to the writing agent, and I said, well, we'll send this out to everyone. And she said, I'd actually like to send it back to Allen and Unwin. And I said, oh, come on, that was a resounding no. And what actually happened was very quickly, I think within weeks after doing that, Allen and Unwin came back and said a phenomenal leap forward or something like that, especially on the basis of a rejection letter. Like they won't even know it. It has a huge way to go still. Please don't think you're out of the woods. However, we'd like to option your book.
Oh, that's good. I have heard through the grapevine that Jane was very excited about this, and you share her publisher with my son-in-law, and she raved about it.
Yes, it was a lovely thing when you find that champion. And like, is anything anyone's cup of tea? Probably not. That's margarine, you know what I mean?
Yes.
But she's something about it sparked her, and the process of various editors under Allen and Unwin over, I suppose, the last 3 years has been so obviously rewarding and educating for me. Oh, this is how it works.
Because it's quite an ambitious novel, and it's quite unusual in its structure. Maybe it's the playwriting background, but so I can imagine that would make it a challenge to get through the system. Publishing, maybe just like acting, surprisingly is quite conservative, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose so. That's right. However, if you've interested them enough in a novel, they don't care whether it's 700 pages or 12. Where on stage you're fighting with people's bladders.
Yes.
Like there's a real clock ticking. I think most of my back and forth and notes were about sort of structural. I don't know. Like you said, there's quite a few things in there. I mean, there's hopefully entertaining comedy and observation about 1920s, decadent jazz types. Then there's a thriller aspect, then there's a horror aspect, then there's a murder mystery aspect, and potentially even a ghost story and adventure and blah, blah, blah. I think I just threw all them in the mix because I like those things. And I mean, I suppose Indiana Jones has a bit of all of them and a bit of sex as well, But I think most of my back and forth were like, I think it's been a while since we've had any clock ticking on the murder mystery suspect angle. And, we need a bit more Agatha Christie here and less just sort of blanket Patricia Highsmith dread. Really getting those genres to all kiss and make up. And for it to be a surprise when suddenly it's a noir section, or a surprise when suddenly it's a cokey, sexy section, rather than a dislocating, kind of jolting film.
How do you feel now? I know you mentioned that it's kind of like sparked some other novel ideas for you. Would you prefer to work on another novel or a script if you had your choice?
A play script, I think is probably my first love, and I've got a desk of them. I mean, they're just so hard to get up in this country. I mean, I've got one at the moment which I think is brilliantly called "Wrong Guy Wins Powerball." I mean, come on, I don't watch that. I can't get anyone to read it. I think that I've always written prose on the side of my performative stuff, and I'm glad that the door is open for me to treat it a little more seriously. And I've got like a stash of ideas. Look, to be honest, my biggest temptation at the moment, after sort of 40 years in this industry, is just writing the slightly tacky, racy airport memoir.
Yes.
About,
we'd like it. Yeah, a memoir sounds fun.
People I may have kissed, or student directors to work with, or maybe the best retirement plan at the moment is just pump one of them out.
Yeah.
Putting on the Schmitz.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, yeah.
Has your mum got a big display, or will she have a big display of the book? Or is she saying no?
Let's talk about that. But there's also the slightly problematic is that we're a secondhand bookshop.
Yeah. So you're going to Better Read Than Dead.
Yeah, that's right. And do I go up to Better Read Than Dead and go, hi, guys? I don't worry partially the competition, but can I just rearrange my books? I've seen quite a lot of authors doing that in new bookshops. I caught Barry Humphries doing that once at Melbourne Airport. Rearrange his stack out the front. Do you?
Look, it's part of your marketing plan. You've got to get in there.
Every author does it. They're all caught at airports rearranging.
But also because I work downstairs, as I've always have down in the bookshop. My fear is that someone brings one in secondhand and hasn't read it. Like, what do I say? Do I sorry, we're full, or how to hear you, or would you like me to sign it for it?
Definitely do that.
Yeah.
Well, we do love to ask all our guests about their favourite tech tips, and it doesn't sound like you're a real techie guy.
Or very hi-fi.
Did you just write the novel in Word, or did you use Scrivener or one of the sort of manuscript apps?
I wrote the play in Word back in the day, but carried around a big notebook before I opened the laptop again. I think the discovery of my palm card method before opening the laptop is great. I mean, because there's nothing like rifling past notes to get to the bit you want. I mean, it's the same with why I have a dictionary here for my daughter rather than just looking the word up on the phone. Of course, it's easier. But on the way to the word, you see all these other words. Same with an atlas. And I truly believe that about a screen. Things get lost up there, you know, as you're scrolling or down there. You don't see the things that spark other things. So I really do believe, I suppose it's a tech tip, is that the longer you can hold out on tech, they're talking about fiction writing or maybe any writing, I think the better. There's nothing wrong with a moleskin in your back pocket or an embarrassing stack of palm cards with doodles on it with a book. I really do believe in that, because once that laptop's open, it's very hard to go back to the notebook stage, I find.
I love that. Well, that is fabulous, Toby. Thank you for such a great chat and for being our guest this week. Tell us where our listeners can find out more about you and when they can buy the book.
Well, look, I'm sporadically, but often passionately on social media. I'm on Fall of a Sparrow on Twitter. I'm Toby M. Schmitz on Instagram. I'm the same on TikTok. And the book drops on the 29th of April. This may have already come out later or before then. And it's at all good bookstores, and you can get it online. And a very good audiobook version is coming out too, with a performer who I absolutely, totally adore, Jennifer Vulitek. And she's doing an incredible job painting all these characters and bringing them to life. So,
wow. Were you tempted to do the audio yourself?
I was rather piqued and chagrined that I wasn't offered it outright, to be honest. Then I realized that it's a whole other world. They said, like, you can audition for it. And I went, excuse me?
Audition for your own book's audio.
And then I remembered that, like, one of the characters speaks fluent French. I'm like, what do I know? I think she'll probably leave this to the expert.
How fabulous. Oh, gosh.
Well, thank you, Toby. Such a great chat. We love the book and all the best with it. Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks again to our wonderful sponsors, Rounded, easy accounting and invoicing software that helps freelancers run their business with confidence.
And don't forget, if you're a gold member of Rachel's List, you can check your welcome emails for an exclusive discount code on the annual subscription rate. You can also find it in the private Facebook Gold group, or just contact us at hello@rachelslist.com.au.